Okay, so you've given us quite the stack of information this time.
No.
All about Georgia insurance law.
Definitely a deep dive.
A deep dive. This is chapter 20.
Yeah, chapter 20.
And our mission, as always, is to kind of cut through all this legal language and,
distill it down.
distill it down to what's really important and hopefully interesting.
Yeah, make it fun.
So what are the key things to understand about how insurance operates in the state of Georgia?
Exactly.
That's what we're here for.
Like, think of this as your guide
Yeah.
to Georgia's insurance world straight from this chapter 20 you gave us.
Yeah.
We're going to look at who's in charge, right?
Yeah.
Companies, the agents, all the things you can't do, and
Right.
most importantly, how it all protects you.
Yeah. And right at the top, it seems like there's this one really key figure with a lot of power.
Uh-huh.
And that's the insurance commissioner of Georgia.
The insurance commissioner, yes.
This person sounds like they have some serious sway
Oh, they do.
in the insurance world.
Basically, they're the head honcho of the whole insurance department.
Right.
And their job is to make sure that all the insurance laws are being followed in Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
So a big job.
Big job.
Really affects everything about insurance,
Okay.
from licensing to fair practices to
Definitely.
everything.
So that means for you as the consumer,
Yeah.
there is someone who will actually look into it if you think an insurance company
Right.
or an agent is doing something shady.
They have real power to investigate and enforce the law.
Okay, so it's not just a figurehead position.
No. This is not just a rubber stamp.
What kind of power are we talking about here?
Well, for starters, they can hold hearings whenever they need to
Oh, wow.
do their job
Okay.
under the insurance code.
Mm-hmm.
And they can make rules and regulations for the whole market
Yep.
to keep things running smoothly.
Mm-hmm.
And those have to be written down, signed, and dated so everyone knows what they are.
Right.
And they have to say why they're making the rules
Right.
so you know what's going on.
Transparency.
Exactly, transparency.
Okay. And they have to give proper notice before the rules go into effect.
So you can't just spring a new rule on people.
Exactly. You got to give people time to adjust.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But, it's one thing to make rules,
Right?
but you got to make sure people are actually following them.
Yeah. How do they do that?
Well, that's where the investigations come in.
Okay.
They can actually go in and examine insurance companies,
Oh, wow.
look at their books and records.
Yeah.
And they can investigate if they think someone's breaking the law.
Mm-hmm.
They can take depositions, which is basically sworn testimony.
Mm-hmm.
They can issue subpoenas, which is like a legal order,
Right.
forcing someone to come and testify.
Okay.
They can administer oaths and even demand to see documents.
So it's like,
Pretty serious stuff.
yeah, they can really get to the bottom of things.
They have the power to dig deep,
Okay.
find out what's really going on.
Now, here's where I think it gets really interesting.
What happens if the commissioner finds something they don't like?
Mm-hmm.
What kind of consequences can they impose?
Well, that's when the enforcement powers kick in.
Okay.
They can issue a cease and desist order,
Okay.
which basically means stop doing whatever you're doing that's wrong
Right now.
right now.
Okay.
And they can put licensees on probation
Mm-hmm.
or even fine them,
Okay.
like $2,000 per violation.
For violation.
Per violation.
Okay.
And if the licensee knew they were breaking the rules, it can be $5,000 per violation.
Wow. Okay. So that can add up pretty quickly.
Oh, yeah, especially if there are multiple violations.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's not just a slap on the wrist.
No, it can be pretty serious.
Okay.
And if it's a more serious crime, they can refer the case to prosecutors,
Okay.
or even take civil action in court.
So they have a pretty big stick if they need to use it.
They definitely have a lot of options.
What about all the money they collect from fines and fees?
Uh-huh.
Where does that go?
Well, all that money goes straight to the state's general fund.
Okay.
It doesn't go directly to the insurance department.
Interesting.
Yeah, just something to keep in mind.
Now, I noticed that the commissioner has to regularly check up on insurance companies.
Yes, that's right.
That seems like a good idea.
Yeah, it's important for keeping the market stable.
Yeah.
They have to examine all domestic insurers, which are companies incorporated in Georgia,
Okay.
at least every 5 years.
Mm.
And they look at their finances to make sure they're healthy
Right.
and able to pay out claims.
Makes sense.
But here's the interesting part. All the information from those exams is confidential.
Really?
Like, nobody can see it, not even with a subpoena.
Huh. So it's like a private checkup.
Exactly.
Okay.
But that helps keep things stable in the market.
Right.
You don't want to cause unnecessary panic.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But what about unfair competition or deceptive practices?
Mm-hmm.
Well, if the commissioner thinks that's going on,
Uh-huh.
they can investigate that too.
Okay.
And if they think a hearing is necessary,
Yeah.
they have to give the parties involved at least 15 days notice.
15 days.
Yeah, 15.
Okay.
Which is a bit longer than the usual 10 days for other hearings.
Interesting. Okay.
And if after the hearing they decide that unfair practices did occur,
Mm-hmm.
they can issue a cease and desist order, fines up to $1,000 per violation or $5,000 if it was intentional,
Okay.
and even suspend or revoke licenses.
Oh, wow. So they really have some teeth there.
They do. They have a lot of options.
Now, what if you disagree with a ruling from the commissioner?
Well, you have the right to appeal
Okay.
to the Superior Court of Fulton County.
Right.
But you got to do it within 30 days.
30 days, got it.
Yeah, so it's a good safeguard, but you got to act quickly.
All right. Well, that gives us a good picture of who's in charge.
Right.
Now, let's talk about the companies themselves.
The insurance companies themselves.
The source material categorizes them in a few different ways.
Yes, it does.
Let's start with this domestic, foreign, and alien thing.
Right. So that just refers to where the company was formed.
Okay.
So domestic means it was incorporated in Georgia,
Fair.
right here.
Okay.
Foreign means it was incorporated in another U.S. state.
Okay.
And alien means it was formed in another country.
Okay. Alien insurance.
Alien insurance. But here's the thing.
Yeah.
No matter where they're from, all insurance companies have to get a certificate of authority from the Georgia Insurance Department before they can do business here.
So even like a huge international company can't just set up shop here without permission.
Nope. They got to play by the rules.
Got it.
Get authorized, what we call admitted,
Admitted. Okay.
by the state.
All right. Now, there's another big distinction, and that's stock versus mutual companies.
Yes, that's all about ownership.
Okay.
Stock companies are owned by shareholders
Okay.
who invest money and hope to make a profit.
Right.
Mutual companies are owned by the policyholders.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and sometimes they get dividends, which is like a share of the surplus funds.
Oh, okay.
So mutual companies are more about providing insurance at the lowest cost.
So it depends on who owns them and what their priorities are.
Exactly. Different structures, different goals.
Yeah. Have you ever heard of insurance companies changing their structure?
Oh, yeah, that's a thing.
Like going from stock to mutual or the other way around?
Yep, it's called mutualization.
Mutualization.
Yeah, when a stock company switches to a mutual structure,
Okay.
and then there's demutualization,
Mutualization.
which is the opposite.
Okay.
So yeah, companies can change things up.
Wow. All right. So we talked about authorized versus non-authorized insurers
Uh-huh.
and the certificate of authority.
Right.
Are there any exceptions to who needs that certificate?
There are a couple.
Okay.
For example, reciprocal insurers and Lloyd's of London type organizations can't write life insurance contracts in Georgia.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah, and title insurance companies have to be stock companies
Okay.
and can really only do title insurance and closing protection letters. Also, any company owned or controlled by a government can't get a certificate of authority here.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are some specific rules about that.
Now, I noticed that the material lists 6 classes of insurance coverage.
Yes, 6 main categories.
What are those?
So you've got life insurance, accident, and sickness insurance,
Okay.
property insurance, which includes marine and transportation, casualty insurance, surety insurance, and title insurance.
Okay. What about HMOs?
Oh, yeah, health maintenance organizations.
Right.
Those are also a separate class for regulation.
Okay. So those are the main categories.
Yep, that's how insurance is organized here.
All right. Well, we've talked about who's in charge and the different types of companies.
Right.
Now let's get to the people who actually sell the policies.
Ah, the agents?
The agents, yes.
The folks on the front lines?
Yeah, it seems like there are a lot of rules about who can be an agent.
Oh, yeah, lots of rules.
So first of all, it seems like you absolutely have to have a license.
You absolutely do. Anyone who sells, solicits, or negotiates insurance needs a license.
Okay.
And that goes for individuals and agencies.
So the agency itself needs a license too.
Exactly. They need licenses for their main office and any branches.
Wow. Okay. And what about paying commissions?
You can't pay or accept commissions with anyone who's not licensed.
So if like a friend helps me find a policy,
Right.
I can't just slip them $100.
Nope. That's a violation, even if it's not a direct commission.
Really?
Yeah, like companies can't indirectly compensate unlicensed people either.
Wow. And what are the consequences for that?
Well, it can be a misdemeanor.
A misdemeanor.
Yeah, pretty serious stuff.
Got it.
So make sure anyone you're working with has a license.
Got it. Are there any jobs in the industry that don't require a license?
Yeah, there are a few exceptions,
Those-
like officers, directors, and employees of insurers or agencies.
Right.
They don't need a license if they're not involved in sales,
Okay.
like if they're doing admin work or management stuff.
Yeah.
Underwriters, loss control people, claims adjusters,
Uh-huh.
and trainers who don't sell insurance are usually exempt. And
Yeah.
people who just do advertising don't need a license either.
Okay. So there are some exceptions.
Yeah. But generally, if you're selling insurance, you need a license.
Now, what exactly defines an agent under Georgia law?
So an agent is someone who's appointed by an insurer
Mm-hmm.
to sell, solicit, or negotiate policies.
Okay.
And they have to have at least one active appointment.
Active appointment.
Yeah, which is like a certificate from the insurer
Great.
saying they can represent them.
Got it.
Without an active appointment, your license is basically inactive.
Okay.
And you can't sell insurance.
So you need both the license and the appointment.
Exactly. Both are essential.
Now, here's a question.
Yeah.
Can agents charge extra fees for helping people get a policy?
Generally, no.
Okay.
Unless they have a specific license as an insurance counsel.
An insurance counselor.
Yeah, they can charge fees for advice. But regular agents can't charge extra on top of the premium. It's all about protecting the consumer.
Makes sense. What are some of the other things agents have to do?
Well, they have to have a physical business location in Georgia, and they have to notify the commissioner within 30 days of any changes.
Changes like what?
Like their address or their name
Okay.
or the companies they represent.
Got it.
And they got to keep records of all their transactions for 5 years.
5 years.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, that's important for accountability.
Right, and what about the money they handle? Like the premiums people pay.
Oh, that's super important.
Yeah.
They have a fiduciary responsibility.
Which means?
Which means they got to be super careful with that money.
Okay.
It's not theirs. It belongs to the insurance company.
Right.
Or to the insured if there's a refund. So they got to report it accurately and promptly.
Okay.
And they can't mix it with their own money.
What's it called again?
Commingling.
Commingling, right?
Yeah, that's a big no-no. And what happens if they mess that up?
Well, they can lose their license, get fined, and even face criminal charges.
Wow, okay, so they really have to be on top of that.
Absolutely. It's a huge responsibility.
Now, what about sharing commissions? Can agents do that?
They can, but only with other licensed agents
But-
who are licensed to sell the same type of insurance.
So you can't share with someone who's not licensed at all?
Nope, that's illegal.
Or with someone who's licensed for a different type of insurance?
Right. It has to be the same line of business.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. Lots of rules about that.
Now, what about this unadmitted insurers thing I saw in the material?
Okay, so generally, agents should be placing insurance with admitted insurers,
Which means?
which means companies that are licensed in Georgia.
Right.
But if they place insurance with a non-admitted insurer,
Uh-huh.
they usually need a special surplus lines broker license.
A surplus lines broker license.
Yep, it's a whole other thing.
And what if they don't have that license?
Well, they can get in big trouble. They could be held personally liable for the insured amount.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and even face criminal charges.
Okay, so it's not worth the risk.
Nope, stick to admitted insurers unless you have the right license.
All right, so let's talk about getting licensed in the first place. What are the basic qualifications to be an insurance agent in Georgia?
Okay, so first of all, you got to be at least 18 years old.
18, okay.
And you got to have good moral character.
Good moral character.
Yeah, basically you can't have done anything that would make you ineligible for a license.
Right.
And you got to complete some pre-licensing education
Okay.
and pass a state licensing exam.
For each line of insurance you want to sell.
Exact, like life, health, property, and casualty.
Okay.
And then you got to submit an application and pay some fees.
Okay, standard stuff.
Yeah, and you got to be a resident of Georgia for at least 6 months out of the year.
This month, okay.
And you can't be getting the license mainly to write controlled business.
Control business, what's that?
So controlled business is when you write insurance policies for yourself.
Okay.
Your family, your employer, or any company you have a big stake in. It's not completely forbidden,
Okay.
but you can't get a license just to do that.
Right.
And there's a limit on how much controlled business you can write each year.
What's the limit?
It can't be more than 25% of your total business.
25%, okay.
Yeah. The main reason for getting a license has got to be to serve the public,
Got it.
not just your own interests.
Okay, so once you have the license, are you good to go forever?
Well, not exactly. There's continuing education.
Continuing education, okay.
Yeah, you got to keep learning to keep your license active.
How much continuing education do you need?
It depends on how long you've been licensed.
Okay.
If you've been licensed for less than 20 years, you need 24 hours of CE every 2 years.
24 hours every 2 years, okay.
And at least 3 of those hours have to be about ethics.
Ethics, okay.
And if you've been licensed for 20 years or more, you need 20 hours every 2 years.
Okay, so a little bit less.
Yeah. A little break for the veterans.
And what about non-resident agents?
They're usually exempt from Georgia's CE requirements,
Okay,
as long as they meet their home state's requirements.
got it. And are there any other specific CE requirements?
Yeah, if you want to sell certain products like annuities or long-term care partnership policies, you need specific training for those.
Okay, makes sense.
Got to stay up to date on all the latest developments.
Now, how often do you have to renew your license?
Every 2 years.
2 years. Okay.
And it expires on the last day of your birth month.
Easy to remember.
Yeah, keeps things simple.
And what if you let your license lapse?
Well, you usually have 12 months to reinstate it without having to retake the exam.
Well, that's good.
Yeah. But after 12 months, you got to start from scratch.
All right, now we talked about agent appointments earlier.
Uh-huh.
How does that work exactly?
So an agent can't act on behalf of an insurer until they're appointed. And that appointment comes in the form of a certificate of authority.
From the company?
Right, from the insurance company.
Okay.
And then the insurer has to notify the commissioner within 15 days.
15 days.
Yeah. And they have to pay the appointment renewal fees.
Got it. And what if the company terminates the appointment?
They have to notify the commissioner within 30 days.
30 days.
Especially if it's for cause.
For cause meaning?
Like if the agent did something wrong, that could lead to their license being revoked.
Okay.
It's all about keeping everyone informed.
So what are some of the big no-nos that could get your license revoked or suspended?
Oh man, the list is long.
Give me the highlights.
Okay, so basically anything that violates the insurance laws or regulations, lying on your application, trying to get a license through fraud, misusing money, fraudulent practices, misrepresenting policies, being convicted of a felony or any crime involving dishonesty, unfair trade practices, not being competent or financially responsible, having your license revoked in another state, forgery, cheating on exams, accepting business from unlicensed people, not paying child support or state income taxes.
Wow, that is a long list.
It's pretty comprehensive.
And what happens if your license is revoked?
Usually you have to wait 5 years before you can reapply.
5 years, yikes.
Yeah, so it's best to just follow the rules.
Good advice. Are there temporary licenses?
Yes, the commissioner can issue those in certain situations.
Like what?
Like if an agent dies or becomes incapacitated.
Okay.
Or if they go into active military service. Or if they lose their appointment and there's no one else to handle their business.
Okay.
Those licenses usually last for 6 months.
Okay.
And they let you maintain the existing business.
But you can't sell new policies.
Right. It's just for keeping things running.
Got it.
Until a permanent solution is found.
Now, what about agents who are licensed in other states?
Well, if Georgia has reciprocity with that state,
Meaning
they recognize each other's licenses, then they can usually get a non-resident license here.
Okay.
And they might not even have to take the Georgia exam.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, as long as their home state license is in good standing.
Got it.
But if they move to Georgia, they'll need a resident license.
Makes sense. Now, we talked about counselor licenses earlier.
Yes. Those are for people who give advice on insurance.
Right.
For a fee.
Okay.
The main difference is how they're paid.
Okay.
If they charge a fee for advice, they usually can't also get a commission on a policy they recommended unless they fully disclose it and get the client's consent.
So it's all about transparency.
Exactly. Got to avoid conflicts of interest.
And do they need a bond?
Yes. Usually they need a surety bond.
What's that for?
It's to ensure they comply with the regulations.
Okay.
And non-residents can get counselor licenses too.
If there's reciprocity.
Exactly.
Now, what about adjuster licenses?
Those are for people who investigate and settle claims. There are 2 types independent adjusters who work for insurance companies and public adjusters.
And they
work for the policyholders.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and they have a fiduciary duty to their clients.
Okay.
And they have to file a surety bond and keep records.
For how long?
5 years.
5 years.
Yeah, same as agents.
And finally, there's the surplus lines broker license.
Yes. That's for placing insurance with non-admitted insurers.
Right, the ones that aren't licensed in Georgia.
Exactly.
And what do you need for that license?
Well, you usually need to already have a property and casualty license.
Okay.
And be deemed competent and trustworthy by the commissioner.
Makes sense. And what are their responsibilities?
I have to maintain a bond.
Okay.
Make sure the non-admitted insurers are financially sound. Collect the premium tax and send it to the state.
Got it. So it's a specialized role.
Definitely.
Okay. Well, that was a really thorough overview of licensing.
It's a lot to take in.
It is now. Let's switch gears and talk about what you absolutely cannot do in the Georgia insurance industry.
Right, the prohibited practices.
Yes,
Yep.
there seems to be a pretty long list of those.
Oh, yeah, lots of rules about what you can't do.
So let's start with rebating.
Okay, so rebating is basically offering something of value that's not in the policy to incentivize someone to buy insurance.
Like what?
Like giving them a gift card or a discount on something else.
Okay.
It's illegal.
Are there any exceptions?
There's a small exception for promotional programs that are worth $100 or less per year.
Okay.
And they can't be tied to buying a policy.
Got it.
It's got to be a separate thing.
All right, now what about defamation?
So defamation is when you say something false or bad about an insurance company, like their finances or their business practices.
Okay.
And you do it publicly or in advertising.
So it's like slander.
Exactly. You can't just go around spreading lies.
Got it. Now, what about unfair discrimination?
That's a big one. Yeah.
It's illegal to discriminate against anyone in insurance based on things like their race or national origin.
So, like charging different rates for the same risk?
Exactly. That's unfair discrimination.
Got it.
And it's illegal.
Now, misrepresentation seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it's basically lying about a policy.
Right. But are there specific situations where it can void a policy?
Yes, there are.
Okay.
So if the misrepresentation is fraudulent,
meaning
it was intentional and meant to deceive.
Okay.
Or if it's material to the risk.
Material to the risk.
Yeah, like if it would have affected whether the insurer issued the policy in the first place.
Okay.
Or if the insurer wouldn't have issued the policy at all, or would have changed the terms if they knew the truth.
Got it. So it has to be a significant misrepresentation.
Exactly. It can't just be a minor detail.
Now, what about twisting and churning?
So twisting is when an agent convinces someone to replace their policy by lying or misleading them.
And churning is when an agent convinces someone to replace a policy with another policy from the same company.
Oh.
Both are bad.
And usually just benefit the agent.
Exactly. It's all about commissions.
Right now, we talked about false financial statements before. Is that a broader issue in the industry?
Yes. It's illegal to publish or spread false financial statements about insurance companies or other entities. It's all about maintaining trust and integrity. You can't just cook the books.
Right. And what about controlled business?
So we talked about the 25% limit if you go over that. Or if the main reason you got your license was to write controlled business, that's a violation. And you can get in trouble.
Got it. So stay within the limits.
Exactly.
Now, false advertising seems pretty self-explanatory.
Yeah, you can't lie in your ads.
Right. But are there any specific examples in insurance that are worth mentioning?
Sure. Like you can't make false statements about a company's finances or misrepresent the terms of a policy or use misleading titles or designations.
Like what?
Like calling a basic life insurance policy an investment plan. That could be considered false advertising.
Got it. Now, what about coercion?
Coercion is basically forcing someone to buy insurance.
Like how?
Like a lender requiring you to buy insurance from a specific agent. Or an employer pressuring you to buy from a certain agent.
Got it.
That's coercion, and it's illegal.
Now, we talked about commingling before. Can you remind us why that's a no-no?
So commingling is when an agent mixes premium payments with their own money.
Right.
It's bad because that money belongs to the insurance company.
Or the insured.
Right, or the insured. So they have to keep it separate.
Got it.
To avoid any funny business.
Now, speaking of fiduciary responsibility, who does the agent owe that duty to?
In Georgia, the agent's primary duty is to the insurance company. They also have a duty to their clients.
But the company comes first.
Right, they're representing the company.
Got it. And what about reporting and paying premiums?
So agents have to accurately report the premiums they collect and send them to the company promptly. And they can't commingle those funds.
Right. We talked about that.
Yeah, big no-no.
And what if they don't do it right?
They can lose their license, get fined, and even face criminal charges.
So it's serious business.
It is.
Now, we talked about sharing commissions before. Are there any other rules about that?
Yeah, you can.